try to talk someone down from $50,000 from an offer. You offered $50,000 and you're like, crap, I got to get them down to 30,000. If you're not willing to make that phone call, this business model is not for you.
It's better to go slow over a long period of time than to go fast over a short period of time.
Almost always in business.
Keeping your foot on the gas. Inching forward is better than sprint, stop, sprint, stop. Consistency is easy in theory, but then you're sick one day, or you're sick for a week, or you have work and you have a baby and life events happen, and it's like, oh, I can do this tomorrow.
I kind of put people in two categories. Like, they're either problem solvers or they're excuse makers. I don't think there's any in between.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. In this episode, we're discussing what separates a $1 million land flipper versus a failed land flipper. I'm your host, Andrew Apke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. I wanted to talk about this because one of the main questions we get in the community and on our calls and YouTube lives is, why do people fail? It's always one of the main topics. Why do people fail, or what is the fail rate? Everyone wants to know about the people who failed so they cannot be like them. They want to do the opposite of what the failed people are. So this episode is to differentiate what we see from, coaching and seeing thousands of people come through our community. We see people who send out one mailer and quit and leave, and we see people who are making millions and millions of dollars a year, and we've seen everything in between too. And we want to put the facts in this episode to back up the people who are doing this very successfully. What separates them from the rest? And it is very clear to us. We've done this for a long time. We've seen thousands of people come through, and This is our bread and butter. So I think this is a really solid episode.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. And I think it will help people who are maybe on the verge of starting this business, people maybe who just started and they'd be like, okay, I don't want to be in this category. But yeah, I mean, we do, from the start, we do consultations with these potential new members. Like, before someone joins our program, starts land flipping, we do consultations. And more times than not, we understand, or we have an idea of how successful they're going to be. And I think it might sound cliche, Dan, but I think it all starts with mindset. Like, how do they view this business? Most of them come in excited, but how do they view this business? Like, can this actually change their life? And what does it take? I think that's a huge thing, but I think it all starts with mindset.
Yeah, we're not 100% accurate. There's obviously people who come in or come to those consultations and end up doing very well, and they didn't have the mindset, because sometimes people are in an earlier stage than others when they come in too. Sometimes people have been literally studying and watching all of our videos for 2 years. And then they come in and it's like, okay, well, they're going to have the best mindset. They know everything about this. They're ready. They're committed. Then some people come in, pull the trigger early, and they're ready to go too. And it's just a different life cycle necessarily of them. But the people really bought in, know that's going to work, are the ones who typically come in. They're aggressive. And we're going to get to all those details. But yeah, it's a mindset thing. It's not a skill thing, whether you can or cannot do it. Ryan Pineda on the podcast a few months ago said he loves real estate because it can take the sidewalk hustler, the guy off the streets who just works hard, and make him a millionaire. Not every business is like that. Business is strategic game. Land flipping, there's an equation to it. Real estate, there's an equation to it. You can put real estate, obviously there's variables, but you can put numbers up and follow the recipe in real estate. And that's why it's cool. Like, when you're in other businesses, you got different market variables to work with. Obviously, you're doing land flipping too, but you got the brand awareness and so many different things, and employees and labor and service. If you own a restaurant, so many different factors. Real estate is an equation. You can give me an apartment complex to analyze, and I'll tell you how much money we're going to make off that roughly. Yep. So that's the cool thing about real estate. It is a mindset game, like you said.
And I kind of put people in two categories. Like, you don't necessarily see it before they join, but they're either problem solvers or they're excuse makers. I don't think there's any in between. Some people send their first mailer and it struggles. They're going to two categories. You have two things to do then. You can make an excuse, blame the business model, blame whatever, or you can okay, what did I do wrong? What can I do better on the next one? And just alone, those two categories, I think they're very defined, and you see it from people after their first mailer. They fit into, maybe they did well, and then they don't have a problem to solve, or they want to scale. That's their problem. But you see it through hurdles. When people have a struggle, are they trying to solve a problem, or are they making an excuse? And I think it is a very defined category, each of those.
I agree. And just going back, I was on some calls the other week, or this week, with Steven. And Steven has been pushing through. done a couple or he's done a deal. He has some in the pipeline. He's doing a double close. So he's starting to get momentum, but he's been doing it for a little bit. And he sees all the stories of all the members and everyone posting their $100,000 deals, and he's like, why can't I do these? And I told him, I said, these people have been through the same exact struggles as you.
Yep.
It might have not come their first mailer. It might have not come their second. Maybe they got a deal with the first mailer. Maybe they didn't get a deal. Then I even brought up Shelby's story to him. I said, look, listen to the story of Shelby on the podcast, how she got her first deal, made $30,000 in literally a few days, like cash closing, like ridiculous time, right? She bought for 15, sold for like 32 or something.
Yep.
After that, she went 6 months without getting a deal. And then she got that multi-$100,000 profit deal. You know what I mean? Like, you might see success early, you might see it later. Having the mindset to get through either of them, obviously you want to get the success early, but staying consistent with it, it all balances out. And that's what I told Steven. I said, at the end of the day, the numbers are going to balance out. Everything's going to balance out. You're capable. You're good on sales. Everything's going to balance out. You got to just let your systems right now play itself.
Yeah. That's 100%. Like, whether your hurdle is right off the start or your hurdle is 3-4 months in, like Shelby's, they're going to come. Like, they are going to come. It's a business. Like, you're trying to run a business. There's competition. There's things that are going to come up. There's going to be sellers that might not want to sell. There's going to be situations where you might have mispriced mail, whatever it is. But getting through those hurdles, we've seen with our brother a ton. Like, we've seen Mike go from it's just up and downs. His business model can be a roller coaster, and I think as you get more experience, like, the roller coaster becomes less up and down, and it's just more flat going up.
You understand it more too.
Yeah, you understand, and you're okay.
And the obstacles change.
I can't tell you when we send 10,000 mailers out and don't get a deal. Like, I just don't. When the size deals we're going for, and I talked about it on the podcast the other day, like, it's going to happen where we send 5,000-7,000 mailers out and don't get a deal because we're going for $100,000 profit deals.
Yeah.
When you make $100,000 on a deal, I can send 50,000 mailers and it would make sense. It's a volume game. It's balancing out. It's education. And that's what I wanted to kind of get into next, Dan, is if you one thing we try not to do is have people buy our program based on an emotional response. Get in this business based on emotional response. That's why we do all these podcasts. We try to educate, and then you can make an educated decision. But the continued education, how much do you see that kind of playing a part in people's success?
In general, courses are great. They'll give you a good foundation of what's going on, but they also limit you and they put you in a box.
Yep.
And I think the best people are, yes, they watch the course. Everyone watches the course. The course isn't going to, give you $1 million business. It's how you execute off the course. But then you have things that come outside of that course. The course puts you in a box. How do you fill those gaps outside of it? That's why our program's $99 a month. We put so much effort in the live calls and the community and the accountability groups. That's our bread and butter. That's education, ongoing education. Things come up. Title issues come up. Sales questions come up. All kinds of things that all sides of the business come up. Where do you fill those gaps that it's not in the course? Because no course is going to cover every single thing. They'll cover more of the philosophies behind it, and then you're responsible for adapting to those situations and using the community and bring them to the calls. We do 3 calls a week, and that's the people we see do very well. They're in the calls. They're very active. They're asking questions. They're just constantly learning. Like, their mindset is just learning. And I think that's one of the huge differences it's like figuring out the answers instead of just kind of rolling over and saying you don't know.
Yeah. And there's a difference between, like, learning and just going a completely different direction. Like, we're not trying to say, like, okay, you learned about whatever it is, whatever little niche within this business or a different business, and then just running with it. But learning how to solve your problems, like, that's what we're here for. That's why that $99 a month, like, if you're in those weekly calls, we can help answer your questions. We can help you tackle deals. We can review deals. We can do all this different stuff that's going to help you grow your business. There are people who are successfully doing this without being in our weekly calls for sure, but most of those people at one point were very, very active in our calls. Those people 12 months ago, like, it might not be worth their time anymore going to the call where it's a lot of beginner stuff where they can review deals themselves. But 12 months ago, they were very active. And that's kind of how it progresses, is like from the start, those first 3 to 6 months, it has to be learning, educating, taking action, continuing education. Then 6 to 9 months, like maybe you're doing some stuff quietly. And it just depends on you grow. Like, okay, now I need some more growth. I'm going to join these calls. I'm going to ask some questions about this. And it's kind of a slow process of growth.
Yeah. And you got to always be learning too, from yourself, from your experience, from mentors. Even if it's not in our calls, having some sort of land mentor that understands, because you can bring the highest level questions to Ron and I too. We answer those just as much as the beginner. And I think that's really cool about land in general in our community, just the people listening to this podcast or YouTubes. We have a good amount of intermediate, good amount of beginners, good amount of intermediate, and good amount of experts kind of all working together. And it's cool because a lot of the experts are still very, very involved, because there are some higher level experts in there too. They're learning from other people. Situations come up that they've never even seen before. And it's just, it's more about understanding how to deal with the things that you don't know than actually knowing them all, because things do come up constantly. Title things. 8 months ago, we weren't double closing. We're double closing now. We weren't even texting 12 months ago. We're texting now. Like, the things are constantly changing and stuff. So as things change, the experts learn kind of with that as well.
And you need to be willing to adjust your business accordingly, for sure, and test things out. Going from that, Dan, so we kind of talked about a combination. Like, if you're not continuing to educate, if you're coming in there with the wrong mindset, like, you have a decent chance of being like not doing well in this business model. Let's talk a little bit about like just the consistency of someone who might not do well in this business versus someone who's making $1 million. Like, consistency with mail, consistency with marketing, consistency with, we already talked about education, but just consistency in general is something we are always touching about.
Yeah, and it's not a sprint to the finish line. It's more of a slow-paced marathon. It's business is rarely a game of speed when you break it down. I mean, there are times, obviously, you got to put your foot on the gas, but it's better to go slow over a long period of time than to go fast over a short period of time. Almost always in business, and that relates to everything with consistency, from sending your mail, just keeping your foot on the gas at least at all times and not taking it off, moving the needle forward a little bit every single day, every other day, whatever your schedule is. Inching forward is better than sprint, stop, sprint, stop. You know what I mean? And it's just keeping it forward, moving forward a little bit every day. I remember when I first started my business, you look at the course I had to take and you look at the website I had to build. It's like, oh my gosh, I got a ton of stuff to do. I don't even know how to do any of this. Then I look at 70 hours of education I have to take there. Like, when am I going to do all this? And then you just start breaking it down. And you're like, I can do an hour today, an hour tomorrow, an hour the next day, an hour the next 365 days. I'm going to have a business within 6 months when you break it down to an hour a day. You know what I mean? And you just keep putting that in. And then some days you do 3, some days you miss, some days you put a full day, you have an off day, whatever it is. But staying consistent, obviously, is the biggest thing in business.
Yeah, just moving the ball down the field, whatever metaphor you want to use. You just got to move forward each day as best as possible. You're going to have days where you don't do anything, for sure, but as consistently as possible. And going on that, we talk about mail consistency quite a bit. Like, mail, whether it's marketing consistency, let's say marketing, whether it's mail, text messages, cold calling, emails, however you are reaching out to sellers, you need to be consistent, because marketing consistency is going to create deal consistency, which is going to create cash consistency, and the business model flows so much better if you're sending 2,000 mailers every 2 weeks, for example, instead of 8,000 mailers every 8 weeks or something like that. Same volume, completely different results.
Yeah.
So if you can be consistent with everything in your business in that way, having a mail schedule is one thing that we've really talked about with our coaching students, where, okay, every 2 weeks, I know where I'm sending. I got to get this mail out. This is going to help me break down your goals backwards. Like, what are your 2024 goals? Okay, how much mail do I need to send every 2 weeks to hit those goals? And just working backwards, I think, is something that can be so valuable. And then you just need to do it. Like, you just got to make it happen.
And in this business, if you're sending mail's the pipeline. Yep. Mail's the start to the pipeline. So if you pause that, your business pauses. If you pause your text, your business pauses. Mail's the start to it. Once you get on that mail schedule and you're getting calls and everything, let's just say you're not getting enough deals after that. And then it's like, okay, I'm on a mail schedule. I'm strict with that. We accomplished that goal. And now I'm not closing deals. Now maybe we need to focus on your sales skills. And I think just understanding like the mail schedule is the number one thing with consistency, like we were talking about and everything like that. And then you'll learn more about your business and what's going on. Maybe you need to up your sales game, whatever that is. But it all starts with mail and getting that. That's the first thing we did with our coaching members is try to get them on a mail schedule, because that just checks the first box. You're going to have leads coming in, check. When you have leads coming in, you're going to close some leads, check. How efficient are we with those leads? And then we start diving into those things, title, listing things, disposition, but it all starts with the leads. And this kind of connects to consistency. How do you stay consistent when things go wrong? And that leads me to one of the traits we see from our members, which is just grit. It's like just the desire to move forward no matter what. The desire that the end goal is worth all the struggle in between, and just understanding that and just having that grit and moving forward every single day, even when, because like consistency is easy in theory. But then you're sick one day, or you're sick for a week, or you have work and you have a baby and the kid comes and all this stuff happens, life events happen. And it's like, oh, I can do this tomorrow.
Yep.
Oh, I can start this next week. Oh, I can finish that next month. Whatever it is, grit gets you there to the destination to move forward, and it keeps the consistency going. So I think consistency and grit work hand in hand.
Yeah. I mean, quitting's easy. Quitting can be easy. Like to say like, yeah, I'm just done with this. It's not working, whatever it is. Quitting's not a hard thing to do, but fighting through those, having grit through those tough times, having grit when you have to, I don't know, maybe you had a long day at your 9 to 5 and you know you need to put an hour into this. It's easier to not do that in the short term than doing it and putting an hour into your land business.
Yeah.
But over time, like all that scales up so much. And if you quit mail, like if you stop mail, your business is going to stop. And that's where people fall off, is when like they have a few bad mailers, they have all this, and then it's not that hard. Like, okay, I'm done doing this. Mail's too expensive. This business model is too expensive. This business model doesn't work. And then you get kind of back into that excuse mode.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think, just having business experience, I've been doing this for like 7-8 years now. And I started from having a 9 to 5. And I understand, especially being involved in the community, I understand what stops people from moving forward so well now, I feel like.
Yep.
And you hear the same stories over and over and over again, but it really all comes down to fear. Fear from whatever. You didn't get a deal, you sent out mail, you're not getting enough leads, whatever the situation is. But that grit helps get you over that fear. And going back to this episode is what separates $1 million land flippers versus failed. It is people who understand that fear is going to come up. It will come up. You're going to have questions. There's so many, this is business. It's so many uncertainties. You have no idea what's going to happen next week, next month, what deals are going to come in. Nothing's certain. There's no certainty, right? But if you just stay certain that you're going to stay consistent, things will happen for you.
And I don't want to, when we go through this episode, Dan, like, I don't want to act like anyone in our membership, any of us are just perfect in terms of all this, because no one is. Like, you have hiccups. It's about bouncing back from those hiccups, about that bad day, whatever the situation is, because no one never misses a mailer. Like, even our most successful people, we talk to them all the time. Like, yeah, I didn't get my mail goal last month. Catch up, and you don't even have to catch up. Just do it the next month. Like, that's what people get so worried about when they miss things, when they didn't watch that module yesterday. They're like, okay, I got to watch 3 today. Maybe if you feel good, let's do 3. If not, just get back on your schedule. Like, that's the biggest thing. I think people try to like, okay, I had a bad day yesterday. Now I got to have a double productive day today. Instead of like, okay, let's just get back on track. And I think that's kind of the mindset thing. But let's talk, Dan, about our most successful people. What are they doing to, like, we talked a lot about this, but in terms of like type of deals they're taking down, what are they doing that's separating them?
Really nothing special. I think that like they're doing the same exact deals we see from everyone else. It's just they're getting them more consistently. Essentially, they're doing bigger deals. They're not scared to make opportunities out of something that doesn't look like an opportunity. I think that's a big one, is they're finding opportunities. But the deals it's not like they're doing the craziest deals ever necessarily. It's just they're getting them more consistently in their pipeline. But the improvements is something we talk about. They are good negotiators. So they have good prices on the deals.
Willing negotiators.
Yes, we find the best people in this business a lot of times have the best margins on their deals, and it's because they're just great negotiators. They're great on the phone. They're aggressive. They don't care. And that's one thing I had for this episode, was the ability to negotiate, the ability to tackle sales, whether you're a salesperson or not. the ability to learn sales and understand how negotiation works and give your best offer to them and fight your case, you'll get deals like that. And the people who come in, we always say from wholesaling, are very successful because they're nitty gritty negotiators, because it's such a competitive industry they're coming from.
Yeah, I've talked to a few wholesalers recently, Larry and Lindsay, who come from wholesaling. They've done amazing in this business, and they're more than willing to negotiate. When you first come in, at minimum, you need to be willing to negotiate, willing to have uncomfortable conversations. And then you also need to take a conscious effort in improving your sales, even if you don't come in as a salesperson, even if you're a data person. Like, it starts with willingness. Like, okay, I'm willing to have it. Those reps of being willing to do that are going to make you better on the phone. Ask questions about negotiate, ask questions, learn, read books. And it is going to make you more money. Like, this business model, if you are trying to get out of your job from this business model, like, it's more than doable for anyone listening.
Yeah.
It's just that if you come in, if you're watching this and you haven't started this business model and you're not willing to try to talk someone down from $50,000 from an offer, you offered $50,000 and you're like, crap, I got to get them down to 30,000. If you're not willing to make that phone call, this business model is not for you.
Yeah. And I think too, like having this, we don't want to make the business model seem overly difficult either, because I've been in a lot of different businesses and this episode can come off like, oh, it's such a hard business model to get involved. Guys, this is basic business that we're talking about. Staying consistent, having grit, like that's entrepreneurship. Staying consistent, having grit, being engaged in education, ongoing education, mentorship. There's no business you'll find where you don't need those skills. So this business is, in my opinion, much, much, much less of an uphill battle than almost any that I've seen. So I don't want to make it come off like it's it's a super difficult business model. You got to have every single thing. Like, as long as you're willing to stay consistent, move forward, it's going to pan out in your favor.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing about this business model is like how you can start from zero and go to $500 million in a year, like very quickly, a profit by yourself without without like hard money investors, that kind of stuff, equity investors, whatever you want to say. But I don't have much more to add, Dan. Like, the difference between the two of someone who's not doing well in this business and someone who's killing it in this business is not a huge difference. It's just a few mindset shifts, a few action shifts. It's not a whole lot.
Absolutely. Well, as always, guys, thank you for joining today's episode. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It really helps drive our mission forward. Thank you for joining. We'll see you next episode.
Thanks, guys.
As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.